Olivia Mason stood at the entrance of the Galactic Military Academy, her heart beating fast in her chest. The massive building loomed above her, its crystal towers reaching toward the 3 moons of Proxima Centauri. She tightened her grip on her small bag of belongings and took a deep breath. "Move aside, human," growled a voice behind her. A tall, blue-skinned Arcturian cadet pushed past, his 4 arms carrying several containers with ease. 2 Syrian cadets followed, their slender bodies gliding rather than walking. They glanced at Olivia and whispered to each other, their laughter like bells in the air. Olivia squared her shoulders and walked forward. She was used to being stared at. As one of only 5 humans selected for the academy this year, she knew she would face challenges. Humans were newcomers to the Galactic Alliance, and many species still viewed them as primitive beings barely out of their Stone Age. The main hall buzzed with activity as cadets from over 30 planets gathered for orientation. Olivia felt small among the varied alien forms. Some stood twice her height, others moved on multiple legs, and a few floated above the ground. "Room assignments will appear on your personal devices," announced a stern-looking officer with green scales covering her face. "Report to your quarters immediately." Olivia checked her device and made her way to the East Wing. Room 347 would be her home for the next 3 years. When the door slid open, she found someone already inside. "You must be the human," said a female voice. The speaker sat cross-legged on one of the beds, her skin a deep purple and her eyes large and gold. "I am Zara of Centauri Prime." "Olivia Mason, Earth," she replied, setting down her bag. Zara's upper lip curled slightly. "I requested a different roommate, but they denied my application. I hope your human habits will not disturb my studies." Olivia bit back a sharp response. "I'll try not to bother you." The academic center was even more intimidating than the entrance. Hundreds of cadets filled the lecture hall, their bodies adapted to worlds far different from Earth. Many had evolved under stronger gravity, giving them physical strength that humans could never match. Others came from ancient civilizations with thousands of years of advanced technology. During the welcome speech by Academy Director Vox, Olivia felt the stares of those around her. When the director mentioned Earth as one of the newer member planets, several cadets laughed openly. They led in a species that only discovered faster than light travel 50 years ago, whispered a reptilian cadet sitting nearby. "How cute." After the speech, cadets broke into groups based on their first training assignment. Olivia approached the tactical simulation group, where a tall instructor with 6 eyes scanned the assembled cadets. "Name and planet of origin," he demanded when Olivia reached him. "Cadet Olivia Mason, Earth, sir." The instructor, Lieutenant Krax, looked down at her. "Earth? Are you sure you're in the right group, human? Tactical simulation requires advanced spatial reasoning and quick mathematical calculations." Several cadets nearby snickered. "I am in the right group, sir," Olivia said firmly. "My test scores qualified me for tactical training." Lieutenant Krax checked his device and raised his eyebrows. "So they did. Interesting." He addressed the group. "Tomorrow we begin at 600. Do not be late." As the cadets dispersed, Olivia felt a light touch on her arm. It was a small, gray-skinned cadet with large eyes. "Don't mind them," he said quietly. "I'm Kel from Andoria. They laughed at my people too, when we first joined, but we showed them." Olivia smiled, feeling a small spark of hope. "Thanks, Kel." That night, as Zora performed her elaborate Centaurian meditation ritual, Olivia looked out the window at the unfamiliar stars. She might be far from home, surrounded by beings who thought humans were a joke, but she hadn't come this far to fail. Tomorrow would be her first chance to prove them wrong. The simulation chamber hummed with energy as 30 cadets gathered for their first tactical training. Olivia arrived 10 minutes early, but most alien cadets were already there, their bodies adapted for efficiency with minimal sleep needs. "Attention." Lieutenant Krax's voice boomed across the room. "Today begins the announcement of the Proxima trials. A holographic display appeared in the center of the room, showing a complex series of challenges across different environments. The Proxima trials test every aspect of a cadet's abilities, Krax explained. Physical strength, tactical thinking, survival skills, team coordination, and combat readiness. The top performers receive automatic placement in elite units upon graduation. Olivia studied the display carefully. The challenges looked brutal. Environments with crushing gravity, underwater missions, toxic atmospheres, each seemed designed to favor specific alien physiologies. The odds board is already active, whispered Kel, pointing to a scrolling list of names with numbers beside them. Olivia found her name at the bottom with the worst odds. 500 to 1. A blue-skinned cadet named Dorn laughed loudly. I'm placing bets now. Easy money against the human. I heard they can barely survive in environments outside their narrow habitable range, added another cadet. Lieutenant Krax tapped his control pad. Today's simulation will assess your tactical thinking. You'll each command a virtual fleet against an unknown enemy. Begin. Olivia's console lit up with ship configurations unfamiliar to her. The alien technology was more advanced than anything she trained on back on Earth. Her hands hovered uncertainly over the controls as other cadets immediately began issuing commands. Having trouble with basic systems, human, sneered Dorn from the station next to hers. Olivia ignored him and focused. The ships responded slowly to her commands. Was that by design? She noticed her scenario seemed to have more enemy vessels than those around her. After 30 minutes, half the cadets had already completed the simulation. Olivia's fleet was surrounded, taking heavy damage. She frowned, then realized something. The enemy AI followed predictable patterns based on her own movements. Instead of the standard defensive formation most cadets were using, Olivia split her remaining ships into uneven groups. The AI responded as expected, concentrating forces against her largest group. She then sprung the trap, using her smallest, fastest ships to strike from behind. When her simulation finally ended, Olivia was sweating but satisfied. Lieutenant Krax approached her station, 6 eyes blinking rapidly. Interesting approach, Cadet Mason. Unconventional, but effective. Later that day, simulation scores appeared on the academy boards. Olivia had placed 7th, not 1st, but far better than anyone expected. The chatter in the dining hall quieted when she entered. Commander Harris, head of combat training, approached Olivia's table where she sat alone. Cadet Mason, Harris said, her voice crisp. Your tactical session has been reassigned. Report to Advanced Simulation Room 3 tomorrow instead. Advanced, but first years usually. Are you questioning orders, Cadet? Commander Harris's green eyes narrowed. No, Commander. After Harris left, Kel slid into the seat across from Olivia. Nobody gets moved to Advanced in the first week. What did you do in that simulation? Before Olivia could answer, Zora approached unexpectedly. Your performance has caught attention, she said, setting down her tray. Not all of it positive. Dorn is telling everyone your success was a programming error. It wasn't, Olivia said firmly. I know, replied Zora with surprising certainty. I reviewed the simulation logs. You identified the AI pattern and exploited it. None of the others saw it. That night, Olivia received an anonymous message on her device. Advanced simulation is designed to break first years. No human has ever passed. Know your place. Olivia deleted the message without responding. Tomorrow would be harder, but now she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't the joke they thought she was. The Advanced Simulation Room looked nothing like the regular training facilities. Instead of rows of consoles, a single chair sat in the center of a spherical chamber. The walls glowed with a faint blue light. Cadet Mason, Commander Harris said, standing by the entrance. This is the immersion pod. It will test not just your tactical decisions, but your reaction time and emotional control. Olivia approached the chair cautiously. What exactly will I be doing, Commander? You'll face a scenario where your vessel is ambushed. Your goal is to survive for 5 minutes. Most cadets don't last 2. As Olivia sat down, neural interfaces extended from the chair and connected to her temples. The room vanished, replaced by the bridge of a small patrol ship. Everything felt real. The hum of engines, the cool metal controls under her fingers, even the slight vibration of the deck plates. Simulation beginning in 3, 2, 1. Warnings blared as 3 enemy ships appeared from nowhere, their weapons charged. Olivia's hands flew across the controls, directing power to shields just before the first volley hit. The ship shuddered violently. Unlike the previous simulation, these enemies didn't follow predictable patterns. They adapted to her maneuvers, cutting off escape routes. Olivia realized they were being controlled by other cadets, probably senior students. She remembered something from Earth history class: submarine warfare from the Second World War. Underwater, when outgunned, captains would use thermal layers to hide. Olivia scanned the simulated environment and found a nearby nebula. She pushed the engines hard, taking another hit that knocked out her weapons. 30 seconds had passed. "She's running," came a voice through the comm system. Typical human response. Olivia smiled grimly and plunged into the nebula, where sensor readings became distorted. She cut main power, letting the ship drift. The enemy ships followed, but spread out to search, exactly as she hoped. When one came close, Olivia diverted all remaining power to engines for a brief burst, ramming the enemy vessel. The impact damaged both ships, but disabled her pursuer. "What is she doing?" Another voice exclaimed. "That's not standard procedure." 2 minutes had passed. Olivia used the disabled ship as cover while rerouting emergency power to minimal shields. The remaining enemies circled cautiously. Olivia noticed a pattern in their movements. They were protecting their starboard sides, a design weakness. She remembered studying alien ship designs, how each species built according to their own physical tendencies. She made her move, charging directly at the nearest ship, then veering hard to target its starboard section. The hit wasn't powerful, but it caused the enemy to spin out of control, colliding with its partner. 4 minutes had passed. "Enough," called out one of the voices. "Let's finish this." The 2 remaining ships coordinated their attack. Olivia's shields failed, and her engines were damaged. With 30 seconds left, she had one option. She activated the self-destruct sequence but didn't complete it, leaving the countdown visible to enemy scanners. The enemy ships backed off immediately, giving her the space to limp away as the simulation ended at exactly 5 minutes. The bridge faded, and Olivia found herself back in the chair, sweating and breathing hard. Commander Harris stood watching, her expression unreadable. "Unconventional tactics, Cadet Mason. But effective, Commander. Indeed. You're the first year to complete the full 5 minutes this term." Word spread quickly. In the dining hall that evening, cadets stared at Olivia with new expressions: surprise, curiosity, and in some cases, respect. Kel rushed over, excitement on his gray face. "How did you do it?" "The senior cadets are furious." Before Olivia could answer, Dorn appeared, his 4 eyes narrowed. "Beginner's luck," he spat. "Or perhaps special treatment. Humans are a political priority, after all." "No special treatment," Commander Harris said, suddenly appearing behind them. "Just adaptability, something we might all learn from." She placed a small insignia on Olivia's table, the mark of advanced tactical training. Dorn stalked away, but many other cadets approached Olivia's table, their mockery replaced by hesitant questions about Earth combat tactics. For the first time, Olivia felt she might truly belong at the academy. The physical training arena stretched across 3 gravity zones, designed to test strength and endurance under various planetary conditions. Olivia stood at the starting line alongside 20 other cadets, including Dorn, whose muscular blue frame towered over her. "Today's challenge tests your physical capabilities," announced Coach Greg, a massive 4-armed instructor. "You'll progress through increasing gravity zones while carrying regulation weight packs. Your time and form will be evaluated. Olivia glanced at the weight pack, standardized for all cadets regardless of species. For some of the aliens adapted to high-gravity worlds, it would feel like nothing. For her human frame, it was nearly half her body weight. Begin. Greg's whistle pierced the air. Olivia hoisted the pack onto her shoulders and moved forward into the first zone, Earth normal gravity. She kept pace with the group here, her muscles trained for this environment. Several of the lighter-built aliens fell behind, while others surged ahead. Then came the transition to 1.5G. The change hit like an invisible hand pressing down on her shoulders. Olivia's pace slowed dramatically as her legs struggled against the increased weight. Sweat poured down her face while she watched Dorn and several others maintain their speed with little apparent effort. "Look at the human," someone called out. "Already struggling." Olivia gritted her teeth and pushed forward. Her tactical victory meant nothing if she couldn't physically keep up. By the time she reached the 2G zone, her legs were shaking. The weight pack felt impossibly heavy, and her lungs burned with each breath. 3 cadets had already completed the course when Olivia was still halfway through the final zone. Her vision blurred at the edges. One step, then another. She wouldn't quit. When she finally crossed the finish line, Olivia collapsed to her knees, gasping for air. She was the third-to-last finisher, beating only a Venurian water breather and a cadet from a low-gravity moon. "Pathetic time, Mason," Coach Greg said, marking her score. "Physical conditioning is non-negotiable for Academy graduates." "Yes, Coach," Olivia managed between breaths. The locker room buzzed with conversation that immediately died when Olivia entered. Several cadets snickered behind their hands. "Back to reality, human," Dorn said loudly. "Your little tactical stunt means nothing when you can barely stand in a real fight. Some species are simply superior." Olivia showered quickly and left without responding. The familiar sting of mockery had returned, erasing her brief moment of acceptance. That night, she lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. Her muscles ached deep into her bones. "You're still awake," Zara observed from the other bed. It wasn't a question. "Just thinking about your failure today." Olivia winced. "Thanks for the reminder." Zara sat up, her gold eyes reflecting the dim starlight from their window. "Your species evolved on a medium-gravity world with oxygen atmosphere. This limits your physical capabilities compared to many cadets." "I know my limitations," Olivia said sharply. "But do you know how to work around them?" Zara stood and grabbed her personal device. "Come with me." Confused, Olivia followed her roommate through the quiet corridors to a small training room in the far wing of the dormitory. "This facility is designed for adaptation training," Zara explained, activating the controls. "I use it to maintain flexibility. You could use it to gradually increase your gravity tolerance." Olivia stared at her. "Why would you help me?" "Your tactical performance was impressive," Zara admitted reluctantly. "It would be inefficient to waste such potential due to physical limitations." For the next 3 hours, Zara showed Olivia specialized exercises designed for gravity adaptation. They worked in silence mostly, but Olivia noticed Zara correcting her form with unexpected patience. When they returned to their room, exhausted, Olivia spotted a message on her device. The upcoming team assignments had been posted, and she had been placed on Dorn's squad for the next challenge. "He requested it specifically," Zara said, reading over her shoulder. "He wants to see you fail." Olivia closed the message. "Then he'll be disappointed," she said quietly, though doubt crept into her mind. The physical tests had exposed her greatest weakness, one that couldn't be overcome with clever thinking alone. Unless, perhaps, she could find another way to turn her human limitations into an unexpected advantage. The team assignment board drew clusters of cadets checking their placements. Olivia stood back, already knowing her fate. Team Dorn, the blue-skinned cadet, had made sure she'd be under his command. "Mason." Kel waved from across the hall, hurrying over. "You're with Dorn. That's bad luck." "Not luck," Olivia said. He requested me specifically. To humiliate you, came a voice from behind. Zara stood there, arms crossed. He's gathered the strongest physical specimens for his team. Kel's large eyes widened. The combined physical challenge is next week. With that team, you'll fail. Olivia finished. That's the plan. Later that day, Olivia sat alone in the library, studying the profiles of her assigned teammates. All were from high-gravity worlds, all with strength ratings in the top percentile. She was the obvious weak link. Mind if I join you? Olivia looked up to see a slender cadet with pale green skin. Lyra, right? From Aldebaran. Yes. Lyra sat down. I saw your tactical simulation. Very impressive. Thanks, but that won't help me in the physical challenge. Lyra leaned forward. Perhaps not alone. But I have an idea. Meet me tonight at Training Room 6. Curious, Olivia arrived at the specified time to find not just Lyra, but 5 other cadets, including Kel and, surprisingly, Zara. What's this about? Olivia asked. Lyra gestured to the group. We're all on different teams, but we share something in common. We're all considered deficient in some way. Olivia looked around the room. Kel's species had excellent technical abilities but poor strength. A reptilian cadet named Vex had amazing endurance but struggled with quick movements. Each had a strength and a weakness. I don't understand. The academy puts us in competition. Lyra explained. But what if we train together, each teaching our strengths, learning to compensate for our weaknesses? For the next week, the unlikely group met each night. Vex taught Olivia exercises to improve her endurance. Kel showed her techniques to use leverage instead of pure strength. Zara, with her perfect balance, demonstrated how to move efficiently in high gravity. In return, Olivia shared her tactical thinking and adaptability strategies. They worked together, pushing each other, growing stronger as a group. On the 5th night, they were interrupted by the door sliding open. Commander Harris stood there, watching them with unreadable eyes. Unauthorized training session, she said flatly. The cadets froze. Unauthorized gatherings could mean serious demerits. Olivia stepped forward. It was my idea, Commander. I'll accept the consequences. Commander Harris stepped into the room, the door closing behind her. But instead of punishment, she said, show me what you've been working on. For the next hour, the group demonstrated their training methods. Harris watched silently, occasionally making notes. Finally, she addressed them. Do you know why I've been particularly hard on you, Mason? Olivia shook her head. Because humans have something the Academy needs. Not strength, not speed, but adaptability. The ability to build connections across species, to find solutions no one else sees. Harris gestured to the diverse group. Like this. She turned to leave, then paused. The physical challenge has been modified this year. It will test not just individual strength, but team coordination across different biologies. Consider this your only warning. After she left, the group sat in stunned silence. She knew, Zara said finally. She's been watching us all along. And she just gave us crucial information. Olivia added, the challenge isn't what Dorn thinks it is. The next day, Olivia approached Dorn's team table at lunch. The blue-skinned cadet looked up with a sneer. Come to beg for mercy before the challenge. No, Olivia said calmly. I came to suggest a training session. I think I have some ideas that might help our team. Dorn laughed. A human, helping us? What could you possibly offer? Olivia smiled. You'd be surprised. For the first time, she saw uncertainty flicker in Dorn's 4 eyes. The balance was shifting, and everyone could feel it. Dawn broke over the academy grounds as cadets gathered at the entrance to the challenge arena. The massive facility had been transformed overnight into a series of environmental zones, each replicating the harshest conditions found across the galaxy. Olivia stood with Dorn's team, 5 high-gravity species towering over her. Despite her suggestions, Dorn had refused her input during their brief team training sessions. "Remember your place, human," Dorn muttered. "Stay in the back and try not to slow us down too much." Director Vox stood on a platform, his voice amplified across the gathering. "Today's challenge tests more than individual strength. You will face 5 environments, each requiring different abilities. Teams must complete all zones with all members to qualify." Olivia glanced at her secret training group, now dispersed among different teams. They exchanged subtle nods. "One final note," Director Vox continued. "Environmental conditions will shift unpredictably. Adaptation will be key." Dorn frowned at this news. His strategy had been based on powering through each zone, using brute strength. Teams entered the arena at 5-minute intervals. While waiting for their turn, Olivia checked her equipment one last time and noticed something wrong. Her environmental suit's oxygen mix had been altered. "Problem?" Dorn asked with false concern. "Nothing I can't handle," Olivia replied evenly. There wasn't time to request new equipment. When their turn came, they entered the first zone, a swamp-like environment with crushing humidity and patches of quicksand. The team moved quickly, with Dorn taking the lead. Olivia stayed in the middle, conserving her strength. Halfway through, warning sirens blared. "Environmental shift imminent," announced an automated voice. The swamp rapidly cooled, water surfaces freezing solid. Several team members slipped on the suddenly icy terrain, but Olivia had anticipated this. She quickly distributed traction spikes she'd hidden in her pack. "Where did you get those?" Dorn demanded. "I prepared," Olivia said simply. The second zone featured low oxygen and intense heat. Olivia's tampered equipment made breathing difficult, but she'd been training for this with Vex. She controlled her breathing and kept pace. When they reached the third zone, a vertical climbing wall with microbursts of gravity fluctuation, Dorn's team began to struggle. Their heavy bodies, advantageous in strength challenges, became liabilities during the sudden shifts to low gravity. "We're falling behind," growled a teammate as another team passed them. "Mason," Dorn called reluctantly. "Any ideas?" Olivia nodded. "Linked together with tethers. When gravity drops, the heaviest pull up the lightest. When gravity increases, reverse the process." The strategy worked. They cleared the wall just as another environmental shift occurred. Toxic gas began filling the chamber. "My filter's failing," Olivia gasped, her tampered equipment giving out. To her surprise, Dorn handed her his backup filter. "The team needs everyone," he said gruffly. The fourth zone tested sensory deprivation, plunging them into absolute darkness. Here, Olivia's human hearing proved unexpectedly valuable, guiding the team through echolocation techniques she'd learned from Kel. As they entered the final zone, exhaustion threatened to overwhelm them. This environment shifted rapidly between all previous conditions, requiring constant adaptation. Halfway through, a real emergency alarm sounded, not part of the challenge. A structural failure had occurred, trapping several cadets from another team beneath fallen debris. "Leave them," Dorn ordered. "Victory is within reach." Olivia stopped. "No. This is not a debate, human. Those cadets will die before safety teams arrive." Olivia turned toward the accident site. "Winning means nothing if we abandon others." To her shock, the rest of the team followed her lead. Using their combined strengths, the heavy worlder's power, Olivia's problem-solving, they freed the trapped cadets. By the time they crossed the finish line, 3 other teams had already completed the course. Dorn's team placed 4th, not 1st. As medical teams treated the injured cadets, Commander Harris approached Olivia. "You sacrificed your standing to help competitors," she observed. "I did what was right," Olivia replied. Harris nodded. That decision just demonstrated more about leadership than any first-place finish could. Dorn stood nearby, his expression complex. "The human surprised me today," he admitted reluctantly. Olivia extended her hand in the human gesture of respect. After a moment's hesitation, Dorn took it. Perhaps, he said quietly, there is more than one kind of strength. The graduation ceremony of the Galactic Military Academy filled the grand hall with light and sound. Cadets stood in formation, their uniforms gleaming under the floating illumination spheres. 1 year had passed since the final trial, a year of continued challenges and growth. Olivia stood in the front row, her posture perfect despite the formal uniform that still felt slightly too stiff on her human frame. She had grown stronger over the months, but her true development had been in areas less visible than muscle. Attention, called Director Vox, ascending to the podium. Today we recognize those cadets who have demonstrated exceptional qualities during their training. These individuals will receive special commendations and priority assignments. The hall fell silent as Vox read from a glowing display. Various cadets stepped forward to receive honors for marksmanship, tactical operations, and scientific achievement. Dorn received recognition for physical excellence, nodding respectfully toward Olivia as he returned to formation. For the Leadership Medallion, Director Vox continued, awarded to the cadet who best exemplifies the qualities of command, inspiration, and unity across species, Cadet Olivia Mason of Earth. A murmur rippled through the assembly. The Leadership Medallion was one of the highest honors, rarely given to junior cadets. Olivia walked forward, her heart pounding. As Director Vox placed the medallion around her neck, he spoke quietly. Your approach to the Academy has changed minds, Cadet Mason, including mine. Commander Harris stood nearby, the hint of a smile on her usually stern face. The medallion comes with a choice of assignments, she explained as Olivia returned to her position. You'll find your options on your personal device after the ceremony. When the formal proceedings ended, cadets gathered in small groups, exchanging congratulations and future plans. Zara approached Olivia, her gold eyes reflecting the ceremony lights. Your achievements will open doors for more humans at the Academy, she said. The next class has twice as many Earth applicants. And they've already been asking about you, added Kel, joining them. The human who changed the game. Lyra and the others from their training group surrounded Olivia, each speaking of assignments they'd received due in part to the new methods they'd developed together. Mason, called a familiar voice. Dorn stood at the edge of the group, his expression no longer hostile. A word. They walked to a quieter corner of the hall. Dorn seemed to struggle with what to say. I was wrong about you, he finally admitted. About humans. We all have biases, Olivia replied. The important thing is recognizing them. Dorn nodded. I've requested assignment to the Border Patrol near Earth Sector. I want to learn more about your world. As they rejoined the others, Olivia's device chimed with her assignment options. The group fell silent as she reviewed them. Advanced Tactical Command, whispered Kel, reading over her shoulder. That's usually reserved for senior officers. And Diplomatic Corps Liaison, added Zara. Both prestigious positions. Commander Harris approached, observing the group. Your decision, Cadet Mason. Olivia looked at the faces around her. Aliens who had become friends, rivals who had become allies. She thought of the new human cadets who would soon arrive, facing the same doubts and mockery she had overcome. I'd like to request assignment to the Academy, she said. As a junior instructor, Harris raised an eyebrow. Unusual choice. Why? Because what we learned here, how different species can combine their strengths, shouldn't be accidental. It should be taught intentionally. Harris nodded slowly. Request approved. You'll start with the incoming class next month. Later that evening, Olivia stood at the same entrance where she had arrived a year ago, feeling small and out of place. Now she watched as transport ships arrived with new cadets, including a group of humans looking around with wide, uncertain eyes. One young woman caught sight of Olivia's uniform with the Leadership Medallion gleaming on her chest. Recognition dawned on her face. You're her, the new cadet said. The human who won. Olivia smiled. I am. And you will too, in your own way. She extended her hand to the next generation. Welcome to the Academy. Things are different now. Behind her, Zara, Kel, and even Dorn waited to help welcome the newcomers. Where once there had been division, now stood unity. Where there had been mockery, now stood respect. And where a lone human had once stood against doubt, now stood a leader.